Now the latest ITV News in London.
Tonight, the COVID capital of the UK. Cases continue to soar in London as health bosses warn of increasing pressure on the NHS. But the government says restrictions aren't changing for now.
We will have to reserve the possibility of taking further action to protect the public.
Also on the programme, we don't want his death to be in vain. The family of a man murdered moments from home vowed to help stop knife crime. Carry on playing. Christmas football games will go ahead despite current COVID disruption. And we've sent Sally Christmas carolling to an inclusive performance at the Royal Albert Hall.
And is it nice coming to a relaxed performance?
Yes. Yes.
What did you like about that?
Well, all about the lights and the relaxing.
Good evening. With just days to go until Christmas, COVID cases continue to soar across the capital. Health bosses are pleading with ministers to impose new restrictions as pressure mounts on hospitals. But in the last hour, the Prime Minister has said there will be no new measures for now. It's estimated 1 in 3 NHS staff in the capital could be off work by the new year, something described today as potentially catastrophic for our healthcare system. Ras Martel has the latest.
Ready to be boosted.
Injecting hope into Christmas.
I advise everyone to do it. It's for everyone, it's not just for you.
Why do you feel it was important to get boosted today?
I think to protect others as well as myself.
Does it give you more confidence of getting through the festive period?
Yeah, I think we're going home and hopefully spending it with some elderly relatives as well. So I think it's about reassuring them as well as myself.
Emily, please come in.
At St George's Hospital in Tooting, even teenagers are getting their boosters.
Is coming now.
Hopefully, obviously, one day this will all be over, and I mean, the only way we're going to get through that is if everyone gets vaccinated and boosted to help everyone.
But there are fears all this might not be enough. With infections rising in London, NHS staff absences are also increasing. The Health Service Journal says this could become catastrophic, with a prediction of 1 in 3 off by New Year's Eve if the rapid spread continues.
This is going to have a huge impact on an already overstretched workforce. We know we're short of nurses already. We're 9,000 nurses short in the NHS in London. So these absences on top are going to stretch an already overstretched workforce. And that'll have implications for the service they're able to deliver and the care they are able to deliver to patients.
And despite all the vaccines and boosters, COVID admissions at St George's Hospital are on the up.
Doctors and nurses here are keen to stress the effectiveness of vaccines. In their intensive care unit, 82% of their most seriously ill patients are not vaccinated.
And that's very sad to see, because some of those patients do die, and some of those deaths, probably most of those deaths, would have been avoided had people got the COVID vaccine. So we would urge anyone who hasn't had any COVID vaccination yet to start now. It's never too late to start.
But at Downing Street, there were more awkward allegations of rule breaking. The Prime Minister seemingly enjoying wine and cheese during the first lockdown. But tonight he insisted that was a work meeting and said more restrictions could be introduced this Christmas.
We agreed that we should keep the data from now on under constant review, keep following it hour by hour. And unfortunately, I must say to people, we will have to reserve the possibility of taking further action to protect the public.
But as Christmas approaches,
Lovely.
most Londoners continue to give COVID that much needed shot in the arm. Ras Martel, ITV News.
Now, restrictions aren't changing for now, but people's behaviour is. Nights out are being cancelled, as are drinks with friends and Christmas parties, leaving the capital's bars and clubs deserted at what should be the busiest time of the year. They say they're desperate for help from the government. Rachel Brown reports.
The lights are on for now, but for how much longer? It's been less than a week since nightclubs were hit by new COVID rules.
We have seen between 30 to 40% Christmas booking cancelling or moving the Christmas party to January, February.
Niccolo has 2 clubs in Clapham, Tropics and Lotus. To go into clubs, you need to show you're double vaccinated or have a negative test. He says many are unaware of the rules and he's fearful there could be more to come.
Some of them, they're not prepared, so maybe they're a group of 10 people or 8 people, and 2 of them are not prepared, and then all the group has to leave, causing a damage to the revenue of the business. Obviously, we need to think about the bigger picture and to think about the safety of the people. But we need to understand that this is our livelihood, and we cannot play around with the livelihood of the people.
And it's people's livelihoods that need protecting. At Camden's iconic music venue, Electric Ballroom, they've been left with no other option but to close their doors for now.
The government is telling us not to, for people not to go out, for people not to socialise, and then for us that leaves us nobody coming into the venue.
This venue is more than a business. You have emotional ties to it.
We've been here for a very long time, since 1938. My dad built this place and we've never had to close. We're hopeful for some kind of New Year's Eve, but I don't know, are things going to change? I think realistically we just need some financial support from the government right now.
The Treasury says it recognises how important the festive period is for this industry and will continue talks with businesses. But many say they aren't being listened to.
I think the biggest part here is we need a long-term plan. We cannot be sat here with uncertainty killing our business, because there will not be a trade or an industry to come back to.
For nightclub owners, turning the music off and falling silent once again is the Christmas present no one is ready to receive. Rachel Brown, ITV News.
Joining me now is Dr Tom Dolphin, a consultant anaesthetist, and Ross Morgan from the Heart of London Business Alliance. Thank you both for speaking to us this evening. Let's start with you, if you don't mind, Dr Dolphin. The pressure really is starting to mount, isn't it? What's it like for staff working on the front line?
It's extremely grim and it's very demoralising on the back of an awful year. We've already had unprecedentedly high winter pressures, not even counting COVID. And we're now seeing, as you said there, a rise in admissions on the back of this huge surge in the number of cases from Omicron. And the added impact of that is that we've also got thousands of staff going off sick or having to self-isolate as contacts so they don't pass it on to their patients. And that's affecting our ability to provide care for patients. We've already seen operations being cancelled, GP appointments are like gold dust, and outpatient appointments are being postponed yet again. It's only going to get worse because more and more staff are going to be going off sick or isolating. We've seen one hospital in London has said they had 1 in 10 of their staff off sick this week. I know of an ITU that had 1 in 3 of their nurses off at the end of last week. This is really impacting our ability to provide care.
It sounds grim. I mean, it feels like London's on the cliff edge with these sky-high infection rates, and Lambeth, we know, has the highest rate in the country. Is there any sign of these numbers levelling out this side of Christmas, do you think?
Well, it's very disappointing not to see action today from the government on this, because the problem with exponential growth is that you always have to act sooner than you think, and we should already have acted by now. We don't want to see a lockdown. We want to avoid having one, but that means you have to act now to do that. And we need smaller interventions now, so we have less likelihood of needing a lockdown later. So, we're talking about needing to cancel large indoor gatherings with support for appropriate support for businesses to do that. We need appropriate support for individuals so they can afford to self-isolate. And we need more emphasis from the government, like strong messaging about limiting social mixing, wearing masks, making sure that if you're going to gather with people, there's good ventilation. All of those messages need to be there, and the government is just not doing what it needs to do right now to stop there from needing to be a lockdown later.
Well, that's the perfect point to go to Ros Morgan. And Ros, can I ask you, I mean, we heard the Prime Minister saying there could be restrictions, but there wasn't really clear clarity, and that must make it so difficult for businesses to plan ahead.
Absolutely, incredibly challenging without some kind of coherent message. It's incredibly challenging for visitors to know what to do, but it's also incredibly challenging for businesses to know what to do. I mean, in the West End, we'd seen footfall steadily growing to like 80% of 2019 levels, which was incredible. And we could see light at the end of the tunnel. But unfortunately, ever since the announcements, the footfall has still steadily fallen, especially this weekend. Like the weekend before Christmas, it dropped by 12% from the previous week. And we had 20% less workers come into the West End as a direct result of the work from home if you can directive. It's a real mixed bag for us. Our restaurants and bars and clubs are seeing a real steep decline with huge swathes of cancellations. But the traditional West End experiences, and I see you had a clip on earlier with performances. So those kind of performances, the theatre performances, the ballets, the ice rinks, etc., they remain at full capacity today, but they're seeing huge waves of cancellations coming forward into the new year. And no doubt with this kind of lack of decision making by government, we could see even more coming through. People just need clarity so that they can make the right decisions.
And Dr. Dolphin, can I ask you, do you think boosters are the way out of this?
The boosters are certainly necessary. We see that the 2 doses is enough to protect people from Delta, but not really from Omicron. So people need that 3rd booster dose in order to be properly protected from Omicron. But that on its own is not going to be enough. We need to have these other things being put in place, like we were talking about, the social mixing being reduced, masks, opening windows, all that kind of thing has to be there as well. Because apart from anything else, it's going to take another few weeks to get everybody boosted and for those booster vaccines to take effect. So we have to act now with those other things to make sure that we're protecting people until that has happened.
OK, Dr. Tom Dolphin and Ros Morgan, I'm sure we'll be hearing from you both again. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
To other news now, and as they laid him to rest, the family of Emmanuel Ogabi say their pain is indescribable and no family should have to deal with such a loss. The 26-year-old was stabbed to death just a few doors from his family home in Woolwich in October. Speaking at his funeral, his sisters Susan and Grace say they're determined Emmanuel's death should not be in vain. Helen Keenan reports.
Just a few doors away from his family home was where 26-year-old Emmanuel Ogabi was stabbed to death. Today, he was laid to rest in Greenwich. Friends and family paying their respects. His sisters pushing through their pain to pay tribute.
We will never ever forget you, I promise.
Emmanuel's family invited us along today to share their message about ending knife crime.
I'll say to whoever's carrying a knife, it's not worth it. And the reason why it's not worth it is because not only do you destroy someone else's family, but you destroy your own family as well. These people just did the unthinkable.
How do you come to terms with something like that as a family?
We can't, because we've lost Emmanuel.
This is where Emmanuel was found, bleeding to death in the street in Woolwich. 3 men have now been charged with his murder. His sisters say that isn't enough and more needs to be done to make communities safer.
People should feel safe in their communities. You shouldn't have to reconsider if you should go out or not. And Emmanuel was claustrophobic and he always used to go out at night to clear his head. And that was his right to do that. And it wasn't anyone's right to take his life away from him. And not in the way they did.
They've called losing Emmanuel an indescribable pain. One they hope no other family will have to go through. Helen Keenan, ITV News.
A mother and her son have been found guilty of killing a 17-year-old boy. Nicola Layton became furious after a group of boys kept knocking on her door looking for her son, Tyrese Ulysses. She drove him and his friends armed with knives to find them. They caught Levi Ernest Morrison and stabbed him to death. Nicola Layton was found guilty of murder along with 2 other teens, and her son was convicted of manslaughter. A serving Metropolitan Police officer has appeared in court accused of sending sexual messages to a 15-year-old girl. PC Will Scott Barrett, who's currently suspended, did not enter a plea at Westminster Magistrates Court. He will next appear in January. Returning to the impact of the pandemic now, and Premier League clubs have spent the day discussing the possibility of their own Christmas circuit breaker in an emergency meeting after several teams were affected by COVID outbreaks. Anna Geary joins me now. And Anna, they've decided to carry on despite the current disruption we're seeing.
Yeah, that's right, Ronke. I mean, for the Premier League, it seems to be business as usual. Now, all 20 clubs in the top tier met today to discuss whether or not to postpone the festive fixtures. Now, that's because of these rising COVID cases. But over the weekend, there were 6 fixtures that were postponed, and Chelsea had tried to postpone their match with Wolves. An application that was rejected. They'd had an outbreak at the club. Now, this afternoon, Premier League bosses made it clear that teams would have to use under 21 players to make up numbers within their squad if the first team were out with COVID. Ultimately, though, the industry, like everything else, is in a state of flux. It waits to see what the government have to say in terms of whether they keep allowing crowds, etc.
And COVID's played a part in Tottenham's run in the Europa League this season too.
Yes, so Spurs have been kicked out of the Europa League. Now, earlier this month, 8 players and 5 members of staff at the club tested positive for COVID. Now, that meant that they called off their final match against Rennes. That was due to be held on December the 9th. UEFA said it couldn't be rescheduled and referred it to its disciplinary body, and they refused to allow more time. The club said it was disappointed, but that now it would focus on competitions that it is still in.
OK, Anna, thank you very much. Thank you. And as we heard earlier, wave after wave of cancellations are hitting the hospitality industry, meaning many more restaurants are being left with unsold food and fridges overstocked with festive treats ordered months ago. Callum Watkinson has been finding out how some in the capital are making the most of their excess stock to help those in need.
Having scraped through the past 2 years thanks to a generous garnish of government subsidy, the hospitality sector was hungry for a bumper Christmas and had stockpiled ingredients accordingly. But as the COVID cases piled up, so too did the cancellations.
It was gut-wrenching because we just want to cook. We had it all planned out. We had beautiful free-range turkey, and it's just gone completely wrong. Cancellation after cancellation. It's really hard for the team then to suddenly say, well, what are we going to do with this?
Are you waiting for the family to arrive?
One thing there is no shortage of in London, though, is hungry people. Dave Cook has seen the footfall at his busking spot in the city disappear, and the ex-soldier is a veteran of many a homeless Christmas.
Christmas itself, especially if you're in this big city like London, it's horrendous because the city dies. And even before COVID, I mean, COVID's a problem as well, but the city just dies. Everyone's with their family, their friends. There's no foot flow on the streets for anybody, really. And it's just, all you can think about that day is either your family or the situation you're in.
Dave is one of 2,500 people they aim to feed here in Hackney for free in the coming days. And restaurants across London are coming up with similar schemes to find empty stomachs for their surplus stock. This was Waterloo over the weekend, where dozens of businesses clubbed together to hand out nearly 3,000 meals.
December is usually our peak season, so we get 400 to 600 covers a day through our doors. And we are seeing almost every single booking cancelled because we have bought to expand and invested so much money on products like chicken and vegetables and other products, because it is going to go into waste. So what I thought is we should not let it waste. We should organize and provide meals for homeless people and most vulnerable members of our communities.
Food bought to be sold for profit being given away for free. Now that's a story laced with the true spirit of Christmas. Callum Watkinson, ITV News.
Now, our next guest is so busy, I'm surprised he has time to fit us in. You'll recognise him from Death in Paradise, but actor Ben Miller also played the lecherous Lord Featherington in the Netflix smash hit show Bridgerton. He can also be seen in ITV's new crime drama, Professor T, and he'll be on our screens on Boxing Day in ITV's all-star musicals. On top of all that, Ben has just written his 5th children's book called Diary of a Christmas Elf. Ben, I'm exhausted thinking about everything you fit in. Let's start with your book. You started writing your books, I believe, for one of your children who didn't believe in Father Christmas. Is that right?
I did, that's right. My first book, The Night I Met Father Christmas, was to convince my oldest son, who was 10 at the time, about the existence of Father Christmas. And I've now followed it up, some of the same characters. And yes, this is the story of Tog, an elf who really wants to make it in Father Christmas's workshop. But of course, the problem for elves nowadays is you don't need just metalwork and woodworking. You need digital electronics, plastic injection molding. And Tog finds himself slightly out of his depth, ends up mucking out the reindeer. Although that is quite an important job, as he points out, because without the manure from the reindeer, you wouldn't be able to fertilize the clementine forest. Anyway, one thing leads to another. He discovers a plot to steal Christmas, of course.
Of course.
Which he then has to thwart.
Do you read them to your children? Are they your best critics?
The very best critics you can imagine, yeah. Their main criticism is just to walk away when I'm reading the stories. So I get lots of practice in trying to make them as magnetic as possible.
We can't let you go without talking about Bridgerton. I loved Bridgerton. Did you realise it was going to be such a big hit when you made it?
No idea. These days I can't go anywhere in a top hat without being recognised. It was extraordinary because we filmed it just before the very first lockdown. And then the show, we didn't know what happened to it because they had a lot of difficulty editing it, obviously because of the pandemic. And then it suddenly appeared, do you remember, on Christmas Day last year, and became this incredible phenomenon. And it was so exciting to have been a part of it.
And is it coming back? Because I loved it so much. Is it coming back?
It's definitely coming back. I can 100% confirm it's coming back. Sadly, not with Lord Featherington.
Oh, no, I'm so sorry about that. OK, let's move on quickly and tell us about all-star musicals, which we're seeing on Boxing Day.
So this is very, very exciting, Ronke. So there's 6 of us, Fern Britton, Radzi Chinyanganya, Giles Brandreth. We're all, Anita Rani, we're all going to do a song from our favourite musical, and it's a competition. So there are judges. Elaine Page is a judge. Samantha Barks, famous, incredible people from the world of musicals judging, and then we have to get voted on by the audience of the show.
Are you a singer? Are you a dancer? Or is this all new to you?
Really, really not. I have to say, I almost missed my slot because Giles Brandreth had me in a headlock backstage. It was very competitive. Obviously not, that didn't happen. It was amazing to do, actually. There was a really fantastic company atmosphere, everyone cheering one another on, which was necessary because, some of those outfits are pretty daring.
That sounds brilliant. And what next? Tell me briefly.
So I'm really, really happy we're going to do another series of Professor T, our ITV detective show about this very quirky professor of criminology in Cambridge who helps the local police solve these really quirky crimes. So all being well, we'll start filming that in Cambridge very shortly.
OK, Ben, well, we wish you luck with whatever you do, and we know there's going to be lots of it. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for speaking to me.
OK, so Sally's here now, and there's less than a week to go till Christmas. I don't suppose there's any chance of any snow, is there?
Well, I'll come on to that in a second. Firstly, I didn't know you were a Bridgerton fan. So am I. How have we not had this discussion?
Loved it.
I've read all 9 books, Ronke. If you're looking for something to do these holidays, that's what you need to get onto. Anyway, snow. Right, there's been a lot of talk about this in the press. It's looking highly unlikely that we will see snow on Christmas Day in the south. There's a tiny chance we might see it later on at night, but I think for now it's just looking a bit wet and windy. Anyway, let's take a look at the forecast. Here we go.
Making the most of it, whatever the weather.
Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
Hello again. Now, I think this next photo I'm about to show was hopefully taken today because if I just stand on this side, you can see a little bit of blue sky above London. I hope that was today. Are we going to see any more over the next few days? Well, it's certainly going to stay mostly dry and settled. We could well see a little bit of sunshine tomorrow, but don't get too excited. It's not definite. Going to get a bit colder as we move through Tuesday and particularly into Wednesday. And then as we go into Thursday, milder conditions return, but it is getting a little bit unsettled, I'm afraid, as we go through Christmas Eve and into Christmas Day. So back to tonight, still plenty of cloud outside. We should be fog-free by tomorrow morning, but it's getting quite cold overnight. There may be a little bit of patchy frost around, nothing too widespread. You can see those temperatures getting quite chilly, cooler than that in the countryside. So quite a fresh start tomorrow morning. And again, plenty of cloud around for Tuesday, but hopefully a little bit more brightness breaking through. The clouds a bit higher, so we might see the sunshine from time to time. Not particularly widespread though, like I said, still a lot of cloud hanging on. The temperatures though not really reacting, cooler than today, highs of only 4 to 6 degrees. And then for tomorrow evening, staying dry, but we are going to see clearing skies in many areas and a widespread frost expected. So a really chilly start to Wednesday, and it will be quite a cold day, perhaps some hazy sunshine in the morning and then turning a bit cloudier. As we go into Thursday, we've got more southerly air coming up, so it will feel a bit milder once again, but just turning, as I said, a bit unsettled. We're looking at perhaps a bit of a murky, foggy day on Friday, maybe a bit damp, and then a bit wet and windy at the moment on Saturday, but we'll keep you posted. It's a few days off.
Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
And Sally, you've heard some rather lovely Christmas carols today, I hear.
Yes, I have. Do you know, every time I hear something Christmassy, I think, right, Christmas has begun, that's it, we're on the way. And it happened again today. Monday morning, what a way to start the day in the Royal Albert Hall, Ronke. Jealous?
Very, very. I love
it was beautiful. They had a very special carol concert, which is called a relaxed carol concert. And the idea is that it's very inclusive. If you might normally find a situation like that a bit of a pain. So let's take a little look.
If it didn't feel like Christmas here before, it certainly does now. At the Royal Albert Hall today, you could forget sitting up straight and no talking. This was a relaxed carol concert for children and adults, and including those with autism, learning disabilities and dementia.
So this concert is designed to be relaxing, and I mean relaxing for the parents and the carers of people with dementia, autism, or just young children. Because often, if you take your young children or people with autism to a concert, they have to be so quiet and the parents get so stressed. Today we just say, make as much noise as you like, we don't care. And you see the parents' shoulders just, oh, thank goodness. And they have a great time.
And so there was munching, cuddling, standing when you can sit and sitting when you can stand. Anything went. And with extra facilities to help people, the idea was to be inclusive.
What made you guys come today?
Because he's autistic.
You've travelled 3.5 hours. Was it worth it?
Yes.
Favourite Christmas song?
12 Days of Christmas, yeah.
It's a classic, that, isn't it? Are you ready for Christmas now?
Yeah.
Are you feeling very Christmassy?
Yeah.
Getting ready for the big man coming?
Yeah.
It's perfect for us. We couldn't really take him to a ordinary performance now because he would find it hard, and so it's lovely that it's relaxed.
It's one of the best things for all of us, particularly for the children within the SEND community. One of the best things.
And why is it so good?
Because it feels that we're included.
Is it nice coming to a relaxed performance?
Yes. Yes.
What did you like about that?
Well, all about the lights and the relaxing. It was a really nice way to spend a Monday morning.
Yeah, better than school?
Yes, a lot better.
These are testing times for venues and families, but today added some much-needed Christmas cheer all round.
Merry Christmas.
Oh, thank you. Merry Christmas to you too and to all of you.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Sally Williams, ITV News at the Royal Albert Hall.
Absolutely wonderful. That's it. We're back with the latest after ITV News at 10. Coming up, Charlene with the ITV Evening News. But from me and the rest of the London team, have a good evening. Bye-bye.